the most successful ones have been obviously the strict press, which is just coupled to brute strength. Number
Okay. Alright, I'm here with Big Jim. He's an old-time strongman, and I asked him if I could come do an interview with him, so we're going to start that off, but I'm going to give a little introduction on Big Jim. When I met you, I think I was about 11 years old at Uncle Jim's, and we pulled up there, and I was like, who is that dude? Uncle Jim's a big guy, but you were really big. You were wearing like a tank top or something like that, and I was like, this guy is huge. And the first thing they said was, oh, he pulls a fire truck. And I just was like, okay. So I started putting thoughts in my head there. And then throughout the years, we started talking. And I think I first started getting interested in strongman when I was about 15. Because you started having equipment and stuff. I saw the equipment that you had at my grandfather's during that time.
Yeah.
So we went forward from there. So he's responsible for getting me started with it. But the stories and the way they trained and how they made stuff is something that I've not had experience, and most anybody hasn't had experience at, because you guys made all your stuff. So to start off, I want to start off kind of in the beginning with what you did. What was like your early childhood starting? Like what sports did you play, like even growing up?
Nothing really, just very limited. Went to a small Baptist school,
Okay.
so they didn't have anything.
Yeah.
They had soccer and basketball, and I wasn't good at either one. Was not good at basketball. I was okay at soccer, but I was more like a goalie or defense. It's kind of slow, but I just wasn't cut out for either one. But that's all you had, so that's what we played.
Right.
But my senior year, I didn't even play. I just worked. I had 2 jobs.
Okay.
So I just worked 2 jobs.
So when you were through high school, were you a big guy then, or not so much, or?
Not comparative to today, no.
Okay.
I was like a farm strength. I
strength.
had broad shoulders.
Yeah.
I was probably 200 pounds soaking wet at 6'2". But I guess today that wouldn't be a big person in high school. I don't think. I was lean. I wasn't a fat guy.
Yeah. So
but it was a 200
pound athletic build for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now starting off too with that, were you always strong, like growing up as a kid, I guess, like that, or did you have a certain time that you just felt like you came into strength, or you just kind of always able to do certain things, just be strong?
I always had, I call it farm strength.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of weightlifting strength.
No. Yeah.
I was not, and I still, even when I did strongman, I couldn't compete with powerlifters in powerlifting. They'd mop the floor with me.
Right.
It was almost laughable.
Yeah.
But I always had, I baled hay growing up, worked on
Okay.
farms growing up. So, hey, go pick up that bale of hay, or go grab that box, or go pick up that, I worked at Pet Boys before the prison.
Okay.
And, they'd go load up a 4 or 6 cylinder engine and go get a couple guys, and no, you don't need that, I got it. And I just pick it up, put it in the back of the truck.
How old were you for that?
21.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were definitely the Now who owned the farm?
They were Amish farms.
Okay.
So I lived in near the Amish community, so I worked on the Amish farm.
So you work for the Amish?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how familiar anybody is with the Amish, but they don't have much equipment, so.
No.
So yeah, I'd say you got a pretty good base of strength just from that.
Yeah, it's all by hand.
Yeah.
By hand.
And my gosh, going into the sport of strongman where it's so much functional strength, farming, a lot of farmers go into that, especially back in the day. So okay, you're 21, you work at Pet Boys, and you're strong. What was what got you into doing strongman? Because I'm assuming you didn't do any powerlifting or anything like that.
No.
What started you lifting weights actually?
So, this is interesting. It's probably what kept me from going further in strongman. My brother worked out. He's 10 years older than me.
Okay.
And he's short, smaller frame. But he worked out, he looked good, and he had a buddy that was short, but he was shredded,
Okay.
And growing up, man, Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, that was, man, I wanted to be him.
Yeah.
I either want to be Bruce Lee or I want to be the Incredible Hulk. But just the power. And I grew up watching wrestling, fake wrestling, with my pop-up, WWF. And my pop-up was a big man for his age. He was born in 1915, and he was 6'4", 260 pounds. So for that back then, that was a big man.
Dude,
but he was a farm strong. And just watching him, watching wrestlers, watching the Incredible Hulk, I just saw people with power, and that always just attracted me. But I was under the misconception that bodybuilders were powerful. They were the strong ones. These fat guys, you wouldn't even think they were strong. So I was dabbling with lifting weights. I didn't have weights, but like we cut a tree branch and put cinder blocks on it and do curls and do shoulder presses. And then when I was 16, I just blew my knee out completely.
Now, how did you do that?
Playing basketball.
Okay.
I hyperextended it.
Yeah.
Really bad. I was in a straight brace for months. They drained it, and then I went to go play basketball. I played one game, then I went to do a practice, and I was jumping to grab a rebound, and I went to spin to throw it, and my foot was planted, and it completely 180. Like my face was facing this basket, and the rest of my body was facing that basket. Just blew it all right out. This is in 1987. The doctor did the surgery, but he told me this leg will never be the same. And it wasn't. It was always 2 inches smaller in circumference. I had no strength. That's like certain ranges of motion. I had almost no strength in it, even as an adult. It just,
So that puts you at a disadvantage, kind of going right into the sport of strongman. But you started lifting trees and making cinder blocks, stuff like that, and then I guess it progressed from there.
Yeah, well, I didn't get into strongman until 2000. I started training with a guy in 1998. At the end of '98, I started training with a guy who competed that year. He was a powerlifter. He was a strong dude.
So you obviously started going to a gym with somebody.
Oh yeah, well I started lifting around in an actual gym. Right around 20.
Okay.
And I developed fairly good. Now by that time I grew another 1.5 inches. I was 6'3.5", and I was about 240 pounds when I started the academy.
Yeah. Okay.
So so from the age of 18 to the age of 21, I put on about 40 pounds.
Yeah. So you got bigger for sure.
Right. And then but I was still focused on that bodybuilding stuff. I thought that was strength, and I didn't know what real strength was.
Right.
And a little short dude I used to work with, he was a power lifter. He's a really good friend of mine. He taught me about what real strength was. He had a big fat belly, and he just looked like a little Samoan dude.
Yeah.
He was Indonesian, but he looked like a little Samoan dude. But he could squat 6 something. He did that as a teenager. I think he had assistants, but he was strong.
Yeah.
And he taught me what real strength was.
Yeah.
He's the guy that helped me to when I could bench press 315 for the first time.
Okay.
He took ace bandages and wrapped my elbows from here to here.
Yeah.
And then I did it. And then that gave me the confidence mentally because I could do it.
Yeah.
But it gave me the confidence, hey, I could do this. And then the next time I tried it without it, it went right up.
Well, and also you're talking about doing bodybuilding training. It's so much, contraction and taking time under tension.
Yes.
And strength is explosive. And that's pretty slick. Even wrapping your arm with an ace bandage, okay, when you go down, faster down, and then you got all that elasticity, it's going to come back up. That automatically will teach you something that you might not have thought about with training bodybuilding, having time under tension, and putting that together. You probably had a pretty good base of muscle. You just didn't have that style of lifting yet.
And that type of muscle strength.
And he was a power lifter.
Yes, he was a strictly
So that's exactly what he was doing.
And he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
I watched him get in on the bench, and he'd arch his back, and I thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
And another thing, his arms were like this long, and his chest was like this big.
Yeah.
And we measured it. He got the bar, and we put a yardstick on his chest.
Yeah.
And he took it down and locked, a complete lockout with a wide grip. He moved it 6 3/4 inches. And then I did mine, and it was a full 24 inches.
Yeah.
So,
there's a difference there.
But no, he is the first one who taught me about power.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's what got you kick-started. And he was your age roughly?
He's a couple years older than me.
Okay.
He made me. I met him at the prison where we worked.
Okay.
We met. So he made me angry actually because a guy asked us what's the difference between me and him, and he said that's a pretty house. I'm a powerhouse. And that got me.
Yeah, I bet it
Yeah, that
did.
got me because he was at the time he was quite a bit stronger than I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got going with him, and then from there, if he's powerlifting, why didn't you start with powerlifting? What changed it for you into strongman?
Well, I knew my knee couldn't.
Okay.
I can't squat.
Yep.
You know, my best squat ever, legit, full powerlifting, legal squat, was 550. That's it. I couldn't squat, and I couldn't deadlift very well. Just right around 6.
Yeah.
And had a good bench, good shoulders.
Yeah.
But I was too tall and awkward to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And the more I learned about it, the more I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I was too weak. Just face it, I was just too weak because of certain reasons, but I was just too weak to be a powerlifter.
Yeah.
And a couple guys, the guy that taught me about strength, and a couple other guys, we just started learning about strongman because we didn't have cable.
So you hadn't even seen it on TV at
No,
this
because
point.
we had antennas. We didn't have cable. There was
Gotcha.
no ESPN,
Yeah.
back then. So we saw it on the internet. And this guy was like, that's what you need to do. He says, I bet you'd be real good at that.
Yeah.
Because I had farm strength, aqua
Yeah.
strength.
Yeah.
So in 1998, this guy had just competed another guy that I knew, and he was real good static strength, and he was a powerlifter as well. He competed that year, and he says, hey, I'm getting ready for it next year. Do you want to help me train? Or do you want to do it? I said, no, I'm not strong like that. I can't do that. But I'll help you train. So I helped him train that winter. He says, hey, come on, let's do a show. It's a small show. It was up in Quarryville, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Okay.
He said, let's do a small show. Just do it. What could it hurt? And I showed up at 250 pounds. I'm by far the smallest heavyweight there. Because back then there
So
was
your first show, you went to be a heavyweight.
Yeah.
And there's no novice divisions or anything at this point.
No, at this point.
And this is your first show.
This was the first year they started over or under 200 pounds.
Okay.
And some places hadn't even adapted that. It was just strongman.
Yeah.
You were stronger, you weren't.
Yeah.
Then they said, well, this isn't fair to the 200, so you were 201 or
Those
under.
little guys.
And then, 202 to unlimited. So I'm in there at 250 pounds, but there's one guy was in there, he's like 400 pounds. But we're in the same weight class.
So your first show that you were trying to help your buddy prep for, you end up doing in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you remember roughly how many people were in that weight class?
Yeah,
Or-
just 5.
Okay.
So it was a small show.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That one was 7.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
Which still that's still a respectable amount of people.
And I got 5th.
You got 5th.
So they had, I don't even know where it's at, but I got a medal. They had a good idea and I adopted it. We ran a show, me and my training partner. We ran our own show where we didn't compete, but we ran one.
Yeah.
And they did something that I thought was really cool. Not only did you get a shirt for competing, and we gave everybody a certificate for competing, but first, second, and third get trophies. But the rest of the guys, they might have been good, but they didn't get a trophy.
Yeah.
So this show, what they did, and we did as well, is if you won an event, you get a medal.
That's cool.
So if you do a clean sweep, you got a trophy and all the medals. But
Yeah.
let's just say you win the tire flip, but you sucked at everything else.
Yeah.
At least you got a medal. Hey, I won the tire flip.
Yeah.
So I got a medal for winning the tire throw.
So you won that on your first event,
Yeah.
or your first show ever. You actually won an event.
Yeah, and I'm not being stupid, but nobody could beat me at the tire throw.
Yeah.
One guy that I ever met could beat me at the tire throw, and that was Magnus for Magnuson.
And we got to get to that
He
story.
barely beat me.
Yeah, so he knows Magnus for Magnus, and actually.
And that's because I worked at Pet Boys.
Actually, yeah, Slick and Tired. Yeah, so anyway, first contest you go against, and right in the heavyweight division, right in the big division. Do you remember what the other events were?
Mm-hmm. My nemesis was the crucifix hold.
Okay.
And I got long arms, and I know a lot of people got long arms. A lot
And that's
of tall
for
guys
crucial
with strong arms.
for time, you know.
Yeah, for
obviously.
time,
Yeah.
out with weight.
Yeah.
And I suck at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm guaranteed last place.
Well, it comes down a lot of times. I mean, you can't argue against your biomechanics and leverage. I mean, the farther something is out from the focal point, it's going to change that
Yeah,
stuff. So,
and I was
makes
like
sense.
the tallest guy there, and it just,
Okay.
I was terrible. I got dead last. There was a medley. Now, this was small time. They didn't have their stuff together.
No.
Our loading medley was 5-gallon buckets full of concrete that you had to pick up and run
Yeah.
and dump and then drag railroad ties back. And it was it was not heavy. I did fairly well at that. I won the tire throw. There was a truck pull, but it was raining, and they had us on literally half asphalt, half gravel. So I don't know how they thought
you're gonna pull it.
But we're pulling a regular sized truck, so it wasn't heavy, but we were slipping and falling.
Oh yeah.
And a tire flip.
Okay.
And that, I think I got in the middle of the road.
Okay.
On the tire flip and the truck pull. But,
so you did your first show there, and immediately, did you think, I want to do more of this? Did you think, that kind of sucked, and then coming back for it later? What was your thoughts on that first one?
First one, smallest guy there, 5th out of 7. I was like, well, maybe number 6 and 7 were just pathetic, you know, or maybe they weren't. I don't know. And I thought, well, I'll never be one of the big boys, but I could probably have fun with this. Okay. So I did another one a couple months later in Delaware.
Okay. Now, I got ahead of myself there. When you say you were helping your buddy prep for that, what equipment were you using for that? Where did that come from? Because if it's your first show, I mean, I know through time I've acquired more things, this or that, and you don't even know what you need to start. I mean, you think, oh, I've got to do a heavy yoke, I'll just squat heavy. You don't understand what it is. So, I mean, what was your training like for that?
So for that, we had like the chimney blocks that go up. It's just like a big square block with a big hole in the middle that they slide over the chimney.
Yeah.
I think it's 80 pounds. That was our, like for loading, that was our light one. That's what we started off with. And I used to, you know, I hope I don't get arrested for this, but I used to steal drops from, it was a port. And you could drive down there at night, and you know there's all these rocks like a barrier.
Yeah.
And I was honest because I'd take them back when I got too strong. So I had a minivan. I was poor. I was so poor back then. I had this beat up minivan, and I pull up. It's the middle of the night. No one's around. I get looking at them, and my feet are all getting wet, and that looks about right. And I'd pick it up, struggling, and I'd swing the door and throw it in my minivan and take off. And I would train with that rock, and then. When I got, all right, I'm too strong for this rock now, I would take it back. Put it on, you know, go find another one. And, because there was no such thing as road fitness. That didn't come out to like 06, I think. We had to physically make or improvise everything we did. And my first log for the log press, my cousin owns a sawmill. I went to him and said, hey, I need an oak log. What do you need it for? I got to lift it over my head. He's like, you're not lifting that over your head. And I was like, yeah, just trust me. And it was, now you got to figure back then, the world record wasn't even at the 400 mark yet.
Gotcha.
I think Hugo Gerard had it at 408 not long after that.
Yeah.
But my first log was, it was like 300 pounds. So we had to cut, I couldn't lift it. So I took a log and I took a chainsaw and cut out a square hole, drilled holes through it, drove some pipes through it. And it was a big oak log, and when we finally cut it down short enough, I think it was 220. But then it dried out, and then the next summer it was like 175. But that was what we trained with. And every other piece of equipment, I had to go to a junkyard, draw a diagram, get whatever pieces I need, oxygen tanks, all that, and take it to this guy that was a welder, and he did it all for free because he thought it was cool. Because there's no way I could have afforded it.
So just to even back up with that, you're talking about using your log. I mean, I don't know, you know, me, I train on like a nice, everything is calibrated log. And a log is awkward, period. I mean, even a nice one. Some guys have got it dialed down on the technique, but you're talking about taking a tree, literally, I mean, and then drilling holes through it and putting handles in. Like, that is really difficult to do.
And the bark on it and everything, and you know,
there's no way it's perfectly centered in weight either.
No, and we drilled holes on the ends with pipes so you could put weights on, but your warm up was always 220 because that's what the log was.
Because the log weighed it.
And I remember one year it had sat and some bugs got in it. I didn't know it, you know, and I picked it up. And that's another thing. No one taught us how to clean a log.
Yeah.
We would hammer curl it. We'd pick it up to our knees and hammer curl it and then press it. And I pressed it up overhead, and I'm screaming because I was a yeller, and I'm like this, and these bugs fell out and fell in my mouth, literally. And I thought I was cool, so my training partner stared at me, and I just chewed them up like this and just kept repping it. But I don't know what they were.
You guys are a different breed.
They weren't poisonous, but yeah, stuff like that. Like our you take for granted when you load up your farmer's walk handles.
Yeah, that's the next thing. What were
They're
your
like
farmers?
80 pounds, and you put weight on them.
I remember when you and Uncle Jim had them out back in the woods that one time, and you were going to help somebody. I was still really young, but you were going to help somebody for a show or something,
Yeah.
and you had to load them up in your truck. And I remember watching you and Uncle Jim just getting them in the truck, how heavy those were. And it wasn't like you could change the weights on them.
No, that's the problem.
That's what they were.
They're between 250 and 300. I had a set that was 250 each, set that was 275 each, and we had the big boy set that was 300 pounds each. The problem with that is there's no warm up.
Yeah.
You're 300, you're 600 pounds,
and that's
and
yeah.
you're walking, or setting them up for the next run. Somebody's got to bring them back.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that was the problem with making your own equipment. There was never a warm up.
Not to mention, what were they made out of again?
Oxygen tank.
Yeah, they're slamming against
your
your
legs. Yeah, they slam
legs,
against your legs.
And they're only about 9 inches off the ground top, so
Yes.
it's like a low pick.
It's
so
a
like
low
ours can be a lot of times. We had the option this year at Worlds to raise our handles. I think my handles were 20 inches off the ground, and we could have them in just a little bit.
Yeah.
That was cake for me.
You're grabbing just above your ankles.
Yeah, and if you pick up at that height, it's not a deadlift at all. What you're doing is like a deficit deadlift,
Yeah.
then to take off. Everybody gets so caught up now in all these weights being heavier, but people don't really understand that equipment was barbaric. I mean, it was like in the Stone Ages, and to actually move it like that, you had to like really just be brute strong. There wasn't the time of figuring the equipment out where it's standardized and then getting your body to work around it. It was kind of just do it or don't. You know?
Do it or don't. And it was a different time too. There was no such thing as straps, and we couldn't wear straps on deadlifts and wraps, and
So
you could wrap your wrists. That was another thing.
How about elbow? Like you talk about the ace band and just
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
that
Was
stuff
that allowed yet or not yet?
Yeah, but it didn't exist.
Because nobody had it.
No,
Really.
nobody knew about it. I was in my fourth year, and this guy took Inzer knee wraps and cut them and had them sewn and had latches sewn on them. And you slide them up, and then you pull these latches, and everybody was like, "Whoa!" Like he was Einstein or something.
Yeah.
Because we just went with bare knees.
Yeah.
And the first time I wrapped my knees, I was like, "Man!" Like I felt like instantly stronger. Same with the elbows. We just didn't have that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now they had it in other countries. I saw videos with like Magnus with different things, but those were the elites. We didn't have that kind
That
of
was at the
stuff.
top of the line. Yeah.
But
Now,
yeah, so-
now you got guys who can't do the lift, but they got the best gear.
Oh yeah. So we didn't have gear. We didn't have equipment. My first round stone. Did I steal this trash can lid? I don't think
This
so.
is the greatest.
I stole a lot of stuff, but it wasn't stealing. It was like in junk piles that people didn't want. But I took a trash can lid, like at McDonald's, where you push it in and it's half round. And so I ripped off the door and I took some sheet metal and wrapped it, and then I filled it, turned it upside down, filled it with concrete, put rebar in it, let it dry, and then popped it out, and then filled it again, and then took the part that was dry with the rebar and sat it down in there. Now you have that one, I think.
Yeah, true.
And it was like 250 or 220. I don't remember what it is.
I weighed it the other day on the official thing. It's 275 or 272.
Oh yeah, that's the trash can. Yes.
Yes.
And we got rocks from, like, sometimes we go to landscapers and we tell them what we were doing, and they give us a rock. River rocks were good because they didn't have any grip to them.
Sure.
But it still didn't give you the same effect as round stones.
Yeah.
And when someone finally bought a set of forms to make your own round stones, this is towards the end for me. I got to make my own set, and I thought I was,
Oh yeah.
The one form with just concrete was 220. Then I made one 180 by putting styrofoam in the middle, and then I progressively worked up to 316 by putting lead in it. I was getting wheel weights from pet toys from off the tires and just filling it with lead.
So I mean, the crazy part about that too, even there's so many directions I could go with that, but even talking about the Atlas stones, backing up, you got to go to a show and do Atlas stones, and there was no way for you to have trained an Atlas stone. That's why when you watch even the older World's Strongest Man, the weights was so much lighter with it. Number one, there was no tacky.
Yep.
Number two, there was no way to train it. And if you don't train it, everybody does it the same way. They try to scoop it like a bicep curl. I mean, you can even look up Zadrunas. He didn't get his Atlas stones till years later from Mariusz Wojnowski. So I mean, like, so you were trying to use river stones to mimic Atlas stones because they were smooth, like the concrete
roundish
were.
and semi-round, like egg shape.
Yeah. So that was probably going on what? Yeah, I'm so assuming your second, third year as you're going through this too.
And My first big competition was in Sugarloaf, Pennsylvania.
We'll back up before you get to that.
Okay.
Okay. Show number 1, 5th place. Show number 2, was it right after, another year later?
No, a couple months.
Couple months after.
Yeah, about 2 months later, I got 3rd out of 5.
Okay, so
I
you're
got 3rd place,
progressing.
and I did better. They had a keg throw, which benefited me because
Yep.
I'm good at throwing.
Yep.
Actually, I never got to compete with a kettlebell, not a kettlebell, the caber, not the caber, the 56-pound weight for height.
Yes.
So I went up to see a guy named Steve Paulsonella, who was a American pro strongman. He owns Iron Sports Gym up in Philly.
Okay.
Big place.
Yeah.
And he was also a Highland Games guy.
Okay.
And so he says, yeah, come on up. Real nice guy. He says, come on. They actually invited me to a show. They had an invitational only show that they invited me to, which I got 3rd. These 2 guys beat me. They're brothers. I hated them. Great guys. Really liked the guys, but I was mad because I lost.
Yeah.
But I did a show the week before, and I had nothing left.
Oh, yeah.
But he showed me the 56-pound weight for height, and at the time the record was like 17 foot something, the world record, and I grabbed it through 15 feet. The first time I ever saw one, because I was good at throwing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so to back that up, I got 3rd out of 5.
Okay.
They had a truck pull, they had farmers walks, but the farmers walks were only 200-pound tanks, so we were running with them.
Yeah.
Like literally running.
Yeah.
Tire flip.
And this is probably taking place out on somebody's asphalt, like outside.
This was in the
concrete.
parking lot of not Iron Sports, the training center up in northern Delaware, up near Bear, Delaware.
I've been there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was in it. So that was Delaware's strongest man, and that was their second one they ever had.
Okay.
And the guy that won the year before won that year again. The guy I was training with, he got 2nd,
Okay.
and I got 3rd. And then I know the guy that got 4th, and he got mad. He died at 29. I'll tell you that later. But yeah, he got mad and busted his trophy up. Or no, he didn't get a trophy. But he did something. I think he ripped his shirt up or something. He did something crazy.
Yeah.
But one last thing on equipment, I got to tell you this.
Oh yeah, we gotta keep going with that too.
So keg throw was popular back then. So I grew up watching Bill Kazmaier, the 70s strongmen, the 80s strongmen, and the early 90s strongmen. And not watching them on TV. We had to watch them on the internet.
But so you started watching that though? Like what age were you actually watching all that stuff?
Probably right the year, a couple of years before I started.
Gotcha. So you're still like
96, 97.
Gotcha. Okay. So
And
20.
So Bill Kazmaier fascinated me. I mean, I met him in real life, and he's all right, but wasn't my favorite guy. But he was all right. I mean, he wasn't a jerk like some people I've met.
Sure.
I ain't gonna mention him. But one guy was a complete jerk. But
I heard this one too.
but Bill was cool. I met him twice, and he was actually pretty cool. But he was my kind of like my hero. Like watching him.
Like some people have Arnold, and you kind of have Bill Kazmaier.
John Paul Sigmarsson was probably my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
And people thought he was arrogant, and he was kind of arrogant, but almost like in an immature way. Like he wasn't trying to be a dick. He was just like jovial.
Yep.
Loved him. I grew up watching Garrett Badenhorst. Just guys like that. I forget his first name, Gary Taylor.
Wales.
He won it one year, and he would have won it another year, but he was so short he couldn't get the sandbag up on the wall.
Yeah.
So I grew up watching those guys, and it was still pure back then.
Yeah.
It was odd things. It was odd objects. It wasn't. Everything was regulated. The bar didn't have to be made of
the Flintstone barbell lift. There was no standard barbell lift. It was rocks, holes in them.
The log might be metal one year, maybe wood the next year. Nothing was regulated, and to me, that's when strongman was the most pure because it was just, hey man, this looks real heavy.
Yeah.
Lift that. The problem with that is you can't have world records because you can't have a world record unless everything's the same.
And it's spectators.
So, but anyway, so we're training for the keg toss, and we didn't have an upright system for throwing 20 feet in the air. So we had a 20-foot pole, metal pole.
Okay.
And we took a piece of plastic and we duct taped it to the top of the pole. Now we weren't throwing 20 feet. I threw 20 feet once, but and I think I threw 19 in competition, but I've thrown 20 foot in practice. But we just used that 20-foot marker as kind of, hey, how close did we get?
Yeah.
Well, there was a lightning storm, And this was our only day to train. So we're standing out there like idiots. And the guy throwing it, you get your warm up like this. And the other guy, he's like holding the pole like this. And lightning, you can see lightning flashing. You're like, come on, man, hurry up, And you throw it, and then you let the thing drop, and then it's your turn. We were nuts, but that's how we had to train.
And that was just for the pure love of it.
That was for the pure.
Because you weren't getting, a lot of people don't do stuff if they're not going to get sponsored or this. I mean, you were going out. You can't even buy the equipment. You got to go make the equipment, and you're going to go out and do it in a lightning storm.
And we got plastic trophies for winning.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of plastic trophies and a busted up body, and never made no money. I made money a couple times, but it was real small, real, because they didn't pay. We were amateurs.
Right.
And then Johnny Perry took my money one time.
Okay.
That's another story.
Yeah. So first show you got 5th out of 7. Next show you got 3rd. Is that right? So you got 3rd. Okay. So then moving on from there, I'm assuming you're starting to rock up shows at this point.
I did 3 shows that year. So that was spring and early summer, and then in the fall, there was a gym called Images, and I got with the guy and I said, hey, can we run a strongman show here at your gym? And I told him all about it. I said, I've got all the equipment. And I said, I'll compete in it, which is kind of taboo because I don't think you should compete in a show when the equipment's yours.
Yeah. And
you make up the rules. But I did. I didn't the second time, but I did that year. And we had 6 events, and there was only 3 guys, me and 2 other guys, in the heavies. One guy was just kind of a strong guy, ex-power lifter. Okay. And the other guy was a current power lifter. His name's Tony Sukarati, and I think at 202, he had like a 500-some pound bench. Like, he traveled the world. But he was a power lifter.
Yeah.
So I smoked everybody. I smoked 2 guys. He was a power lifter. He beat me in the log press. I did, I think, 3, and he did well over 3. I think he did close to 350. And that was questionable because, like I said, the log got lighter.
Oh yeah.
But the other 5 events clean sweep because they weren't. I had experienced 2 shows at that point and about a year of training, and he, and they just weren't built for that kind of strength. Yeah. So tire flip, smoked them. Tire throw, smoked them. Truck pull, smoked them. The farmer's walk. The one guy waddled, and then I only think he got across the line, and he picked it up, the Tony Sukarati, and he took about 5 steps and just dropped it. Now in his defense, he had a bench meet coming up.
Gotcha.
He didn't want to hurt himself.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to go well anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the end of that year, and that was my 3rd show, and that was what really my most novice time, where I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So then moving on from that too, how was your training? How were you kind of working in your training? Because I'm assuming, like a lot of people during that time, they'd lift their weights kind of like, just gym bro stuff to an extent, like, heavy. Everything you do is heavy. You still did your bicep curls because back at that time, even with the log, nobody knows the technique for the lats and rolling it. It's all a hammer curl. So everybody's in the gym. If you're doing strongman, you're doing heavy hammer curls, I'm assuming, stuff like that, and then training events kind of other bit. Is that kind of what you were doing?
Yep. We were doing, so my partner quit. He didn't compete in strongman again, ever. He got back into powerlifting. That year, 99, I didn't even compete. I trained for 3 shows, and I didn't go. I just couldn't afford it. Okay. And I was divorced, getting divorced, and pretty much left homeless by the judge. And I just didn't have the money. Yeah. I just simply didn't have the money to pay, because you had to pay for to compete. You had to pay for the entrance fee and all that, and traveling and stuff, and I just didn't have it. So, but I trained. I kept training.
Yeah. So you were still getting stronger for the time.
And I forgot about this, and I didn't remember it. But we were actually doing curls with 315 in the straight bar, like 1 rep, and it looked like the McDonald's arch.
There was a little body English in it.
Oh, a lot. It was kind of like this.
Well, who else had a 300-pound curl?
Who?
Magnus Samuelson. He had that
training
video. He was doing the 300 pounds, but it looked like that too.
Because we would start from here, just get it from here to here, and it looked ugly.
Yeah.
We only did that like once, but most of the time, anywhere from 225 to 275.
But that's the thing. You guys had to have the way you were lifting with the techniques back then. How you thought. you had to have strong biceps, or else you weren't going to clean the log.
Yeah, no, we didn't know what
You
to
weren't
do.
going to pick up an Atlas stone if you didn't have strong biceps.
When the guy finally showed me, hey man, get it to your knees, squat down, get it to your chest tight, and stand up with it, we were like,
and that was probably towards the end of your career.
yeah, we were like, man, that saves so much energy.
Everything.
Like I ripped my bicep off in 08, and I believe that I started the process from doing all of that.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
So yeah, I got stronger, just lifted heavy in the gym, a lot of heavy shoulders, a lot of push presses, behind the neck push presses.
That was really popular back then too, I guess.
Yeah, I
no split jerks, but just like a
No,
push
you
jerk
weren't-
from behind the
we
back.
saw a guy snap his leg in competition. They said no split lifts, and we're doing it in grass, and it rained the night before. What an idiot! And they said no split lifts. You can do a raw press or a push press. but
Right.
So he does a split lift anyway. He slips and falls, and boom, right on his leg, snaps his leg. It was a 2-day competition. He comes back the next day all cast.
Yeah, I bet he did.
But yeah, so just basically got stronger. My push press, not that year, but developed. I finally got up into the mid 300s on my behind the neck push press, which for that era was
That was
respectable.
good, yeah.
It wasn't world class, but it
Well,
was
and
respectable.
too, you got to think with all the time and how you guys are training. I'm assuming you probably, when you do a training session, it would be a long training session for number one,
Yeah.
and then two, you're trying to save some stuff for all your events training because you're going to go beat yourself down with that too.
Yes.
So I mean, there's a lot of just a lot of time that you have to put towards it too, because it's not like if you want to go do it, you have to load it up and take it wherever you have it,
No.
things like that.
Your average gym guy couldn't load and unload our stuff just to prepare to go
To
work
start
out.
doing. Your workout was before you did it. Then
Yes.
then you had to work out,
And
you
then you had to
it
put it back.
when you're done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we kind of cheated, and we would call the promoter and say, "Hey, what's the events?" But he would tell anybody, and what's the weights, and he would tell us.
Now, what do you mean? Why is that cheating for you guys back at the time?
Well, back then I guess it was kind of taboo. I don't
Really?
know.
So
Yeah.
you guys wouldn't even know
Well,
what
sometimes
events
you didn't know what the events were.
That
And,
blows my mind.
So we would call them up. Hey, what's the events? And like, okay, how much is the farmer's walk this year? Okay, well we bumped it up. They're not 200-pound tanks now. They're 250-pound tanks. So we would train with 275-pound tanks.
Gotcha.
That way,
You were
come
really
game day,
ready for
it
it.
felt easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's wild to not even know what some of the events were
Yeah.
sometimes, and
Yeah.
definitely not know the weights.
Or they switch it when you get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens sometimes now.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll still change stuff. I know at Worlds they changed a little bit this year, but all things considered, you know what you're having. I mean, I knew to the height of what my farmers were going to be before I got
we
there.
didn't know nothing
No,
about
and if you called, they'd probably get on you because I mean it's going to be the same for everybody, kind of thing, complaining.
Yeah.
So okay, so you're going forth from that, and this is the year you took off because you didn't have money to compete, but you're still getting stronger. Then you come back to training, come back to competing. When did you start really coming to your own? Because I know you won some good shows and you actually got to compete with some legends. So
2000, I came back and started competing again.
yep,
I think I did 3 shows in 2000, but it was my first big show up in Sugarloaf, Pennsylvania.
okay.
And now you had like 20 some guys just in the heavyweights, so it's a good
So
size.
it jumped on you fast. You
Oh,
went
yeah,
from 775, and now you got 20 people.
and it was
That
they were some
training.
big boys.
Yeah.
They were some big boys, and that's the first time I ever saw Atlas stones. Never saw one in my life, other than TV.
Gotcha.
And like you said, I used to watch Bill Kazmar and all them, John Paul, and their heaviest Atlas stone was 320, 330,
Sure.
and that's what we were using.
Yeah.
So I never saw one, and they were trying to. They had a guy demonstrate for everybody how to do it, like 5 minutes before you got to do it, and he's just demonstrating it. And just like you said, I had no clue.
No.
I loaded 4 out of 5 stones. I didn't get the last one, but I bicep curled them. I just got underneath them, and everybody's screaming, "Go over top, go over top!" But if you've never done it before, and you've never
you don't
seen
know what
anyone,
that means.
you don't know what that means. You're
No.
thinking just. So I muscled and we had them on barrels, plastic barrels full of water, and I just muscled all 4 up.
That's the farm strength.
Nobody got 5. I did pretty good at that event. I got 3rd. I really got 2nd. I'm still pissed about that. That's my favorite trophy, the Viking.
Okay.
I got 3rd in that one, but which isn't bad out of 20 some guys. But I really got 2nd. But we had a log press for max weight, and we had a log press for reps. And this dude named Donnie Olick.
So you had 2 events with the log.
Yeah, it was a 2-day. It was a 2-day.
So one day you was okay.
So we went and did. It was 7 events.
Yep.
We did 4 events, and then the next day we did 3 events.
Gotcha.
And we call it the Donnie Olick press because that's the guy that got second. So in the end, he beat me literally by a half of a point, not even a whole point, half of a point. And when we did the log press for reps, it was like 7 feet. It was a huge, long log, but skinny. It was hard to balance. And they told us it had to be ears to elbows, which I can't lift this arm anymore, but your ear had to touch your elbow. Locked. Yep. Everyone locked. And then the guy, he goes down, come up again, and it was all the way up, all the way down. Come up again, lock.
Yeah.
So I did every one. Bam, lock. Wait for the down signal. Bam. This guy comes up, leans back like an incline press, and just goes, whoo. And even the crowd was like, he's not locking it out. He's not locking it out. And the judge is looking around like, what do I do? And he gave him credit for all of them. And so we would have been switched second to third, but that's water under the bridge. But that was my first big show. That was my first.
There was some pretty big names at that one, I guess, at the time, or was Johnny Perry at that one, or not that one yet?
That was
future. Okay.
That was the up and coming of the amateurs. Were there, a few of them guys. The guy that won, his name was Stu Mitchell. He was pretty good. He did well, but that was my first big show, but it didn't have big names.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So people were competitive. They just weren't well known at that point.
Right.
Strong dudes, but just not.
So then you fast forward to the following year, 2001.
Yeah.
Now I'm finally starting to accumulate some equipment. I'm starting to learn a little bit about technique. That's the second time I met Bill Kazmaier. I did the East Coast, they call it the East Coast Nationals.
Okay.
That's another one that pissed me off. They didn't even give out trophies. This is the East Coast Nationals. And if I'm not mistaken, it was 24 competitors in the heavies. It was in that ballpark. And they didn't even give out trophies. They gave out checks. So I took my shirt. I took my shirt and cut it out and framed it and photocopied the check to prove that I got third place.
Yeah.
And stuck it in there because I would have rather had a trophy than the $50.
Oh yeah,
$50. And I think the winner got 150 or something like that. But that one, there was a pro in that one. He was on his way out, but it was a pro in that one. And another guy named Walt Lagola. He's the guy that always beat me in the Delaware. He looked like Fred Flintstone, but massively strong. Just strong shoulders, nice guy. I don't know if he actually went pro, but I assume that he did because he was an alternate one time at Worlds.
Oh wow!
But awesome shoulder. He was like, I think he did a 390 shoulder press, log press, and that was back then.
Yeah, that was world class.
But yeah, so I got third there. That's the second time I met Bill Kazmaier. And that was my first exposure to something big. Like okay, now we're getting, because back then we didn't have, we had gold, we had platinum shows, gold shows, silver shows. So to make it to nationals, you had to either outright win, I think, a silver show, or get first or second in gold. Gold. They judged them by how many competitors and how big it was.
Yeah, okay.
So I made nationals 3 years in a row.
And nationals was a lot bigger of a deal to make back then than it is now.
Yes.
Because my first year doing it, I can walk around and say, oh, I made nationals. It wasn't the same qualification that you're talking about to make.
No.
Nationals to them was like, that's almost like, it's not worlds, but like, it's like a big title. Which to win nationals, I'd say is probably a big title here. But I don't know. There's a lot of top guys that are worlds that don't go to nationals. I'm not going.
So back then, if you went to nationals, you were probably one of 30 guys in the country that made it.
Yeah.
And it was more of a big deal back then. And I never went to one of them because once again, I couldn't afford it. Yeah. I was broke, man. I was broke. So I mean, I'm struggling trying to eat right and buy the right foods and train. And the first year of nationals was in California, and you had to be out there for a week. I couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
And then the second year was it was in Missouri. I'm sorry. It was in Missouri. Couldn't afford that. So the third year was in South Carolina. I said, oh, I could make that trip. And then I looked at the events: deadlift, squat, and crucifix hold. guaranteed,
three.
guaranteed last place out of 6 events.
Yeah.
3 of them. So
Yeah.
what was the point?
Yeah.
So I didn't go to that one. And then the last year I did it was in '04. I shouldn't even competed that year. I was not mentally into it. I had other things on my mind.
Yeah.
I wasn't even training for shows. I thought I could just coast, and I couldn't. And I made it. I did qualify for police, fire, military nationals, but not open nationals.
Okay.
So I went to police. The last show I ever did was police, fire, military nationals, and it sounds great. Like I got 2nd place. It sounds great, but it was only 3 guys, so I beat 1 guy. And there was a Virginia state trooper that won, and I seriously questioned their drug testing policy because this dude was like, "Come on, man."
Yeah.
He was like, "Come on."
Yeah.
But
And that was also another thing in your era too. I mean, it was really looked down on to use PEDs or anything like that too.
yeah, about towards the end, I'd say maybe 70%, 65 to 70, probably closer to 70% of your amateurs were on it.
Yeah.
All your pros were,
Mm-hmm.
and just working at the prison, I didn't want to take the chance.
Yeah.
Now, pro hormones, I drank it like water.
Yeah.
Because it was free. VPX Sports was my sponsor, and all I did was wear
So
their
you
shirt.
actually, towards the end of your career, you actually got sponsorship.
Yeah, I had
with it.
VPXs. I got
Yeah.
them in '01, and I sent them a record of my wins and kind of made them sound a little better than they were.
Yeah.
And they agreed to sponsor me, and they just sent me supplements, cases of it though. It was real expensive, like a bottle
And you just had to wear their shirts.
of, and I just wear their shirt when I competed, and it was great. And I did pretty good. And I mean, people did see the shirt, and they do ask you like, what
Yeah.
are you taking?
Yeah.
But you know, pro hormones aren't steroids though.
Yeah.
They're not even close. But
Yeah.
it was enough to give me at least a little bit of edge
Yeah.
so I could compete with these guys.
Right.
So that was, I shouldn't have competed in '04. I did terrible. And that's when I met my wife now, and I wasn't thinking about training, and I wasn't training. That was just stupid. I
So
should've
you just competed, you kind of were on your way out a little bit, and you just
Yes,
did, yeah.
I did that. I think I only did 2 or 3 shows in '04, and I did a pro qualifier, and I got 11th place, and that's the worst placing I ever did in an amateur show. So I did 20 shows total, 19 amateur, 1 professional show, and out of the 19 amateur shows, 16 of them was 1st, 2nd, or 3rd.
Yeah.
That was 11th.
That's a really good.
That was 11th
record.
place, and that was terrible.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize was, and I think it's totally unfair, by the 4th event, if you weren't in the top 10, you didn't even get to do the 5th and the 6th event.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what the 5th and the 6th event was? The round stones and the 56-pound weight for height.
And that would change
My
your
two,
points a lot.
it wouldn't have made me win, but it could have bumped me up to 6th or 5th.
Oh yeah.
And I was 11th. I missed it by 1 point.
Yeah.
I was pretty angry about that. But
Yeah.
anyway, my own fault for not training. But
So that was 2004.
that was
So
2004.
2004 was your last official strongman.
Yes, and then I did police, fire, military nationals after that and called it a day.
Okay, so let's get into. I want to hear some of these stories. Let's
So-
hear the Magnus versus Magnus.
All right, so-
if you get to,
So that was in '02.
okay.
So what happened was I did well in the East Coast Championships in '01, and I'd done there's a lady named Gail. I can't remember her name. I'll think of her later. But anyway, she ran the shows, and she, I guess they noticed me, or you know, I did well in her shows. I
Yeah.
always did. They were always in Virginia, and I always did pretty well, top 3 usually in her shows. I got 3rd in her East Coast Championship. So they had a professional show every year in Norfolk, Virginia, where they would invite pros and to come compete at this Azalea Fest. So you got thousands of people there, and they're there for everything. All these festivals, parades, everything, you know. And the Strongman was just one of the shows there.
Okay.
So they had a couple professionals drop out at the last minute, so they needed a replacement. So she calls me up and says, "Hey, would you fill in? You know, we think you do well." I said no, because I'm like, come on, Magnus for Magnuson, Phil Pfister. Phil Pfister hadn't won yet, but I think he was ranked number 1 in the U.S.
Okay.
I'm an amateur. This is like telling a high school guy to go play against Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
You know? No, so I said no, and then I thought about it, and a week later I called her up and said, "Hey, you still got? Yeah, we could really use you." So I said, "All right, I'll do it," because I thought even if I look like garbage, I get to compete against the guy I watched on TV.
Yeah.
So we went there, and man, this dude, So Johnny Perry was there, 6'5", 375,
Yeah.
25-inch arms.
Yeah, monster.
Monster, nicest guy in the world. I competed with him the year before in 01 at a big show in Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay.
These guys crawled out of a mountain somewhere, like a couple of them were 400 pounders. And there was like 18 guys at that show, and I got second. And they actually gave trophies from 1st to 10th.
Oh, that's cool.
And at 10th, I'm like, I know I got somewhere. I thought I got like 5th or 6th, you know. And first place was $1,000. Second place was $500, and I think third place was $350. So they get to 5th, or no, 6th. They hadn't called my name yet. Man, I know I got top 5. Man, come on now, something's wrong. And they made us wait because they didn't have the check. Someone had to run to the bank. So I'm like, will you just give 4th through 10th their trophies so we can go home, because you know a strongman event is all day.
Oh yeah, you're
Can
tired
we?
of being there.
Can we just go home and I'm mad. I just want to get my trophy and go home.
Yeah.
And they called 5th, wasn't me. And they called 4th, wasn't me. And I'm like, man, something's wrong here. I'm gonna have to talk to the judges. Like, they messed up. And then they did 3rd, and it wasn't me. I got 2nd place. Now, it said on the papers, amateurs only, no pro strongmen. Johnny Perry got 4th in the Worlds the year before that.
Yeah.
And he won. He took my grand. He took my $1,000. So I got a picture with him because I took it to work, because I was like, "Can I get my picture with you?" He's like, "Sure." I said, "Because they're going to laugh at me at work because I didn't win, and I want to show them why. Because I look like a little schoolgirl next to him.
Yeah.
I'm 280. He's 375.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But nicest dude.
And how bizarre of a system is that, where he's obviously competed at Worlds and he's going to do the amateur?
Yeah, he should not have been there. But he heard $1,000 and made it.
And
to his credit, he made an easy $1,000 that day.
Yeah.
You know, he blew us all away. So that's a funny. I got to stop there. I got a funny story. So we did the way they ran it was, if you got last place in an event, you had to go first in the next event.
Yeah.
And if you got first place, you got to go last.
Yep.
So we had a truck pull. It was a fire truck pull. So I got this crucifix hold. I got last place, of course. And the next was a truck pull. So I go first. I pulled the truck. And I mean, I'm tired, I'm out of breath. I've just pulled a fire truck. Well, the next guy goes, it wouldn't work right. And the next guy tried, it wouldn't work right. Well, the brakes locked up. So now they get a tractor trailer, but just the rig without the trailer, and we're pulling on a very slight uphill grade, just very slight. So they're like, "All right, well, you got last on the crucifix hold, go." I'm like, "I just pulled a fire truck." And then these guys have been resting all this time. And actually, Johnny Perry spoke up, and he was like, "Hey, that ain't right.
Yeah.
Like, let him go last. That's not right."
Yeah.
So, nobody could pull it the whole distance because of that little bit of a bump at the end. They would get like 40 feet, 50 feet. It was 100 feet. They couldn't get it. So Johnny Perry did pull it, but he was just a whole nother world.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm pulling this truck. I'm going to be the only amateur. I'm pulling this truck the whole 100 feet. I'm doing it. Man, I pulled that sucker. I got like 90 feet. 10 feet from the finish line, further than anybody except Johnny.
Yeah.
Right? I had it. Crowd's cheering, crowd's going wild. My shoe pops off. My shoe. I wore regular sneakers instead of like high tops or hiking boots. We didn't know about that back then. Shoe pops off. I pulled it 3 more feet in my sock. And then I just couldn't. I had 7 feet left.
Yeah.
Oh man. Look, I walked up, I grabbed my shoe, I threw it in the crowd, everybody's cheering, and he's like, I got a shoe. You know, it was crazy. But anyway, so when I went to the professional show, man, Johnny Perry, like some guys were snobs. Some guys were, some weren't.
Yeah.
Johnny Perry walks up to me, "Hey man, I remember you, how you been?" Sat with me at dinner. He died that next year. Obviously the stuff he was doing.
Yeah.
But it was a shame because he was so strong. He didn't know how strong he was. He didn't realize it. But one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. Like, what really nice dude. So then I met Magnus. This is where I met Magnus. So this is like one of my heroes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go and we get to compete, and you know, with Strongman you bring super glue in case you rip your hand open. You bring Motrin, you bring Tylenol, you bring Tums, or whatever you need. Everything. Extra underwear.
Yeah,
I can't tell you how many times people crap themselves. And one dude's walking around with a brown stain on his pants all day. So Magnus is like, man, I got heartburn bad. He's from Iceland. It's a different culture. So I said, you need something for heartburn? He's like, yeah. So I give him these extra strength Tums, and they're huge. They're like the big giant ones, right? About an hour later, I'm saying, hey, how's your heartburn? Is it doing all right? He said, yeah. He said, but man, they were tough to swallow. You big dummy.
Yeah.
But but this was in 2002. He won in 96. The last time he won World's Strongest Man. So you're looking at 6 years.
Yeah.
He still had bragging rights, but was one of the most humble people I ever met.
Yeah.
And that impressed me.
Yeah.
That I met some guys that were good and they were arrogant as I don't know what.
Yeah.
Magnus won 4 times. Had just won 6 years ago. I'm sure he did fairly well after that. One of the most humble people I ever met.
Yeah.
And he actually took me to breakfast, just me and him.
Really?
And he was like, you got potential. You could go pro if you wanted. You're not going to be a top pro, which I knew that. But you could go pro if you want. But you gotta do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, couldn't justify with what you were doing with your job and everything
No.
else with it. So.
And that's the year they banned pro hormones too.
Ah.
So I had enough to tide me over.
Yeah.
Because I had enough stored up from everything that they gave me.
Yeah.
But just couldn't do it. But Magnus was so. There was, I think, 6 events, and when it came to like the log press, they made me look bad. I think I did 5 or 6 reps, and I think 10 won it. 250-pound log up and down, all the way up and down. The stones, I only got 3. The 4th one, hardly nobody could get it. It had powder or something on it. Everybody kept dropping it. I think only 2 guys got all 5, and these were the pros.
Yeah.
The deadlift. I'm not a good deadlifter, so it's an 18-inch deadlift and it's on tires, and I think it was like 805, and I can't deadlift much weight. So the one guy couldn't get it to fill in, then another guy couldn't get it, and here I am to fill in. I couldn't get it, and there's like, I don't know, 1,000 people, because they're here for this festival, so they're there and they're watching, and I couldn't get it. It was so embarrassing, and this guy was like, try sumo. I never tried sumo in my life. So I split my legs, grabbed it, and I pulled, and this is for reps, I pulled with all my might, locked it out, over-locked it out, dropped it, and then instantly faked the back entry. Oh, my back, like that. And the guys were like, I think he hurt his back, he's done. And I'm thinking, I didn't hurt my back, there's just no way.
That guy was done.
So this dude was like a champion deadlifter. His name was Abdul Wazalowski, a little short dude, right?
Yeah, okay.
The bar is sitting on his kneecaps. Like, we got to overcome this. He's just sliding it up and down.
Yeah.
He comes up right after me and does it 19 times. And I'm just like, But then when it came to like the medley, where you had a 280-pound stone, you shoulder it, you run, and you run back with 500 pounds, I beat half the guys. I beat half the guys in the truck pool. And then we did the tire throw. So what happened is some dingbat brought the wrong tire. It was supposed to be a tire flip. It was supposed to be a 1,000-pound tire for reps. They brought a 1,500 or 1,600-pound tire. And everybody's like, we can't flip that. I think one guy said, I could do it. But they were like, what are we going to do? So they found this great big truck tire, and they said, tire throw. And I'm like,
yes.
I'm like, God shined down on me on this one. So, man, everybody threw, and then it was my turn. And I was just like way out there. And the crowd was like everybody, even the announcer was like, whoa, like I was significantly further than everybody else.
Yeah.
And like Phil Pfister, all that guy, and all the other pros, and I just smoked him. And then here comes Magnus, and he used to do Highland Games, so he knows how he did the wind up thing like this, and I had a weird technique, but not like his. And he spun, whoof, and he beat me by like a foot. So then I threw, and I beat his, but we're head and shoulders above everybody else. No one else is going to run it. And then he throws. We got 2 shots. He throws, and he beats me by like 6 inches. So I got second in that event, but
second, 4 times world's strongest man.
Yeah, and other pros and all that.
Yeah.
So that's when I should have stopped Strongman.
Okay.
I was never going to get any better. I was never going to accomplish anything better unless I wanted to juice.
Yeah.
And I should have stopped then, and I would have saved a lot of wear and tear on my body. And that was April of 2002.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, very cool, Jim. We're gonna wrap it up with that. But to finish it, is there anything, talking about all of what you did and the equipment that you had and the training that you do and the differences and this and that? Is there any advice? You helped me tremendously. You inspired me, which is the biggest thing. But you helped me tremendously with equipment and
yeah. Where did all my equipment go?
Yeah, I got the trash can.
Yeah.
But what piece of advice would you give to somebody coming up, a younger guy or somebody even like my age doing it? Anything you think of?
Research, learn how to train, learn how to lift.
Yeah.
Not like what we did.
Yeah.
Wrap your joints.
Yeah.
Not like we didn't. Wrap your joints every time.
Yeah.
Learn how to train. And if you're going to compete in strongman, I don't know. I'm not trying to discourage people from doing it for longevity. But for some people, that's not the answer, because you end up like me with needing multiple joint replacements. But maybe give it all you got, but make it short.
Yeah.
Or if you realize you've hit your climax, then call it a day.
Yeah.
And just be proud of what you did.
Yeah. One of the greatest tips you gave me with that, when I was telling you I wanted to push it and get stronger, you told me, you said, you got to do what you got to do and train. He said, train hard, but don't be afraid to throw in a light day. Don't be afraid to throw in a light week, because yada 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 happened to me, and you want to be able to do that. If you don't do that, you're going to get hurt all the time, and that was something I've taken extremely far. I've tried to really do all that stuff in my body. So thank you for that, Jim. And you're in right. You are a legend. The stories you got off
in my town.
People don't know what it's like to talk about taking a trash can lid and making atlas stone. People don't know what it's like to go ride down to a river, sneak a rock from some construction site or this stuff. People don't know what that's
like. Or drive
like.
12 miles with tanks in the back
That's
of the car.
true, Pat.
You don't have a road long enough to do a farmer's walk.
Yeah, there you go.
Or doing it in mud in your backyard. They don't know.
That's a different level of passion for the sport, and that's what drew me into the sport in the beginning, and that's why you love it and I love it. So anyway, with that, thank you very much, and we'll finish it up there.
I appreciate it.
That was so much fun. I tell you one thing.